Today, we're diving into the world of industrial engineering to pull back the curtain on a hidden blueprint that, honestly, keeps our world running safely. We're talking about the ASME B31.3 piping code. Now I know that sounds super technical, but stick with me, because this is really a story about how a bunch of very specific rules prevent some very big disasters.
I mean, just think about it for a second. Picture a massive chemical plant or a power station. You've got literally miles and miles of pipes. And they're not carrying water for your garden. They're carrying stuff like superheated steam or corrosive chemicals, all under insane amounts of pressure. So what's the magic trick that stops all of that from going completely catastrophically wrong?
Well, the answer is a rulebook. Specifically, this one, the ASME B31.3 code. And let's be clear, this isn't a collection of friendly suggestions. It is the authoritative standard that engineers, fabricators, and inspectors basically live and die by. It's the playbook that turns a massive potential hazard into a reliable, safe system.
So, to really get how this all works, we're going to follow the code's own logic. First, we'll look at its core mission, safety. Then, we'll get into the ingredients, the materials and parts. After that, we'll see how the standards are actually enforced. And then, we'll get our hands dirty with fabrication and welding. And finally, we'll tie it all together to see why every last detail is absolutely critical.
All right, first up, a code for safety. This is the whole point, right? The entire reason B31.3 even exists. It's all about being proactive and defending against failure before it has a chance to happen.
You know, what I find fascinating is where the code begins. Before you even get to think about pressure or temperature, Section 323.5 makes you stop and consider something called deterioration of materials. The code's #1 priority is making sure you choose materials that won't rust, corrode, or just plain fall apart when they're exposed to whatever they'll be carrying for years and years. It's all about playing the long game from the very start.
And that leads us perfectly into our next section, materials and components. If building a piping system is like following a recipe, this is where we choose our ingredients. And let me tell you, this code is a very, very picky chef about what you're allowed to put in the mix.
So, one of the first things the code does is split all the parts into two big buckets. On one side, you have listed components. Think of these as the off-the-shelf, pre-approved parts that everyone knows and trusts. Their specs are all published and vetted. But on the other side, you have unlisted components. These are the wild cards, maybe a custom design part. You can use them, but the burden of proof is on you to prove they're every bit as safe as the standard stuff.
So, you're probably wondering, how do I know if a part is listed or not? Well, that's where the code's master list comes in, and this thing is one of its most powerful features.
And here it is, Table 326.1, the Component Standards Table. Yeah, I know, it looks like a wall of text, but this table is basically the heart and soul of the code. It's a massive, comprehensive encyclopedia of parts, and it links every single component you can imagine to a specific official standard number.
Let's just zoom in here. Look right at the top under bolting. Even for something as basic as a bolt, the code doesn't just say, use a bolt. Oh no, it says you must use a bolt that conforms to standard ASME B18.2.1. That's the level of detail we're talking about. It leaves absolutely nothing to chance.
And it's not just bolts, of course. As you scan down this list, you see everything. Flanges, gate valves, gaskets, the pipes themselves. Every single piece of the puzzle has a specific standard it has to meet. And the reason is simple. It guarantees that all the parts will actually fit and work together like a single, safe, integrated system.
Okay, so we've picked our materials, we've sourced our approved standard components, now it's time to actually build the thing. And this brings us to fabrication and welding, where precision is literally everything.
The code starts by establishing who's in charge. Section 328.1 is crystal clear. The employer is responsible for the welding. Full stop. That means the company is on the hook for making sure their welding procedures are tested and proven, and, just as important, that the actual people holding the torches are fully qualified to do the job. But just having a qualified welder and saying, "you're responsible," isn't enough. Not for this code. It goes so much deeper, spelling out the exact how of the assembly process in incredible detail.
Just look at this diagram. This is amazing. Before a welder can even strike an arc, the ends of the pipes have to be perfectly prepped. This figure shows the exact angles, the precise dimensions for the bevel on the end of the pipe. It doesn't matter if the pipe is thick or thin, there is a specific geometry you have to follow, period. This is what ensures the weld will be strong enough.
And the code has this level of detail for pretty much every scenario you can dream up. On the left, you've got instructions for using backing rings to help support a weld. On the right, a totally different job, creating a strong T-junction. For every challenge, the code has a specific engineered solution ready to go.
I love this slide because it's like a mini welding language lesson. This is called a fillet weld, and the code defines its strength by two critical measurements, the leg and the throat. Now, these aren't just academic terms. Inspectors will come out with special gauges and physically measure these dimensions to make sure that weld is as strong as it needs to be.
So, after going through all these details, materials, parts, welding procedures, let's zoom back out. Why? Why does every single one of these tiny details matter so much?
This quote, straight from the code itself, is the big payoff. It's a little wordy, but what it's basically saying is, hey, if you just use the pre-approved, listed parts from that master table, you're already compliant with a huge chunk of the code. It's like a fast pass to safety because you're using parts that have already been proven to work.
And that's really the big idea here. Every rule, from the type of metal you choose, to the angle you cut on a pipe, to the certification of a welder, it all exists for one single purpose: to build a system where the whole is so much stronger and safer than the sum of its parts. It's a chain of integrity, and the code's job is to make sure there are absolutely no weak links.
So the ASME B31.3 code is this amazing, invisible blueprint that prevents disasters we never even see. And it makes you wonder, doesn't it? What other complex codes and hidden rulebooks are out there, quietly working in the background, keeping our entire modern world safe and running every single day? Something to think about. Thanks for watching.